One of the questions we receive so frequently is, how do I use tinctures safely? It's a noisy afternoon here, but let me take a few moments to share some thoughts with you. And let me start off by actually mentioning some of the different ways in which we use and recommend natural remedies. We very frequently use herbs, and that is because there are so many medicinal values in various kinds of herbs, and herbal remedies have a gentle effect on the body. They don't force their effect onto the body, and as is often mentioned by Barbara O'Neill, your herbal remedies typically will actually go to the area of the body where there's a problem and offer assistance, if you want to think about it like that, instead of forcing its effect onto the body. And that is really beneficial because it means that the side effect profile of natural remedies is a lot better. So we really like using fresh herbs when we have access to them. There are various herbs with antimicrobial properties. Some of them support the digestive tract, some of them support the urinary tract for infections or treatment of infections. There are various kinds with different uses. So fresh herbs are great if you have them. You can make decoctions with them, which is probably, I think, just a fancy word for making teas. You can also dry them. You can use them in poultices. So there's various different ways to use them. Another thing that we like to use or have on hand are dried herbs because, of course, they store well. So if you don't have access to fresh herbs, dried herbs are an excellent alternative, and they can also be used in different ways. I don't typically use homeopathic remedies because homeopathic solutions are extremely diluted. I really like to have the full medicinal value of a plant. So fresh or dried is great. Essential oils are also really convenient and very handy. You need only tiny quantities of them, so even though they're expensive to purchase, they last for a very long time, and they also have different ways in which you can use them. And then tinctures is also one of the things that we use, and this is where we get a lot of questions. So there are, to my knowledge, two different kinds of tinctures. One kind is a glycerine-based tincture, which people often prefer because it doesn't contain any alcohol. And then obviously there are ALCHOL tinctures where the alcohol is used because it is such a powerful way of extracting medicinal properties from a plant. One thing that I've learned, and which a lot of people don't realize, is that glycerine actually is also a form of alcohol. So I actually personally prefer to use alcohol-based tinctures because there's a neat trick that I can teach you and that I can share with you, where you can actually get all of the alcohol to evaporate from that tincture and you're left with a medicinal value, whereas with the glycerine tinctures that is not so easy to do. So when I use an alcohol-based tincture, I typically will just put the drops that I need into a small little container like this. I prefer glass containers because I'm going to add hot water to them, so I don't like to use plastic for this. And I use any small container that I have available. If I don't have anything else, I just use a standard teacup or a coffee mug or something like that. You can also use a flat saucer. That would really help for the evaporation process, but it's more difficult afterwards to actually use the tincture then. So a small container like this is quite convenient, and you get various kinds of these for little saucers. They're usually sold at various home stores that sell different kitchen supplies, and those little containers, especially the ones that have a shallow depth, work really well because you're going to add your dose of tincture to that little container. You're going to add a little bit of hot water, and then the main thing that needs to happen is that it needs to stand and be exposed to the fresh air, like what I'm sitting in at the moment, for as long as possible. Now, you don't have to have that tincture standing outside. Your kitchen countertop is absolutely fine, but it needs to be exposed for quite some time. And this is where a lot of people make the mistake. Many people believe that if you add hot water, within 5 minutes that tincture is ready to use. But there are various sources and various research articles that actually state where they have tested for the alcohol presence left over after a certain time period. And most of those research studies indicate that that tincture needs to stand open and exposed to air for at least 6 to 12 hours. So what I find to be the easiest and the most convenient method is, if I'm going to be using tinctures on a regular basis, I will basically have 3 containers on my kitchen countertop, and at nighttime I will put the dose, 3 doses, measure them out into those containers, add my little bit of hot water to that, which is actually just going to make it easier the following day, because once all the alcohol has evaporated, which can be up to 95% of that tincture's volume, when the alcohol has evaporated, sometimes you're left with just a dry residue in your little container, which isn't that easy to use. So I do add a little bit of hot water to the container, but what is going to help for the evaporation process is not just the hot water, it's the time where that tincture is exposed to the air. So I use 3 containers. I will put all 3 doses for the following day. If it's a 3 times a day dose, I'll put those doses out and just leave it to stand open overnight. So by the following morning, any one of those containers are ready to use. It's only from the surface that it will evaporate. So it's one of the reasons why if you had your container, the glass bottle that you bought your tincture in, even if you leave that lid open, because there's not a lot of surface area exposed to the air, that will not actually evaporate, even if you leave it open for a number of days. So small containers, put your drops out, put your water in, leave it open overnight, and by the following day you should be good to go. You can often actually taste if there's alcohol left over. You can also do certain tests. So you can do the flame test, where if you actually use a lighter and just above your tincture, it will actually light up the tincture mixture if there's still alcohol remaining. So you can do that test if you want to make 100% sure that all the alcohol is evaporated. These are just some tips that I use. I'd love to hear what you use, so make sure that you share with us in the comment section below. Remember to subscribe to the channel so that you can hear the answers we share if more people send questions that we respond to on the video platform. And I'll see you next time.